Allahu Akbar. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we all know, is just and does not allow injustice, nor does He Himself do any injustice. But at the same time, we find that there's a lot of dissimilarity, differences, and so-called discrimination in life. And this is the result that has been drawn. Naturally, this subject requires a detailed treatment, but tonight I would like to give treatment to particular aspect of it so that we begin with this particular thinking and way of thinking. First and foremost, let us acknowledge one thing, that man on this earth has never been satisfied. Never. You give him anything he wants, and the next thing he will ask you is more. Allama Majlisi alayhi rahmah has written about Dhul Qarnayn, who has been mentioned in Holy Quran, giving details of his story. He says that Dhul Qarnayn conquered nearly whole of earth, and when he reached a particular kingdom which he also conquered, when people invited him to the dinner, they kept plates covered with cloth, and he thought perhaps he will be served with food. When he removed the cloth, he found that the plates were full of gold and silver. So he said, I am hungry and I don't eat gold and silver. Why didn't you serve food? The answer they gave him was that if you wanted food, you had enough where you were. You came here for this. There was no scarcity of food where you lived if you were only to subsist on food. But you have something more in mind and you have come for that. And this is what we serve. And then Majlis al-Rahmah writes that they brought a stone, a particular piece of clay to him, and said, Dhul Qarnayn, this clay is special. This piece of mud, dried mud, is special. So they said, he said, what is special about it? He said, put it on a scale. On one side, keep this clay. On the other side, put any weight that you like. This clay will always be heavy. They said this. Majlis al-Rahmah writes that Dhul Qarnayn would not believe, because he just held in his hand, clay was so light that any small weight would outweigh it. But he was told that you put it on a scale and put any weight on the other side, this clay will always be heavier. And as he tried, he found it was true, that the clay was always heavier. Anything that they put here, any load, any weight, he found that clay was heavier. So he said, then, what is heavier than this clay? They said, just put and sprinkle a bit of dust on this clay and it will become light. So when they sprinkled a bit of dust on it, the clay became light, and anything that you put opposite it in the scale was heavier. What is the secret? They said, this clay represents human nature. You put anything opposite it, this is always heavier. It wants more and more. And that more and more goes on till you sprinkle some dust. That means when you put him in the grave and sprinkle the dust, and the dust goes back to dust, then of course it forgets. So man, as long as he breathes, is never satisfied. And this is one of the reasons of our unhappiness. Before we blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, Ya Allah, you have wronged me, man has to acknowledge a fact that even Allah were to come from Arsh and heaven, wherever things people believe He is, and to say that I have come and here is whatever you want, there's going to be no satisfaction. This is human nature. One. Second, man believes, when I say man here, I mean men and women, all of them. Man believes that he is the most unhappy, he is the unluckiest man on earth. Everyone believes that he is a more sufferer than the other. You suffer less, I suffer more. Some people have a tendency of believing that they are the worst sufferer. The rest, everyone is happy. Even if they see you suffering, they will try to tell you that your suffering is less than mine. This is a tendency in human. Saadi writes in his Gulistan, there are two anecdotes of Sheikh Saadi which we must try to learn by heart. One is that a fellow came out of the house with no shoes in his feet and said, Ya Allah, I am the poorest on earth and the unluckiest. I don't have even shoes. And as he crossed the street, he saw a man who had no feet, amputated. So he said, Ya Allah, I am a lot better. I don't have shoes, but I have feet. The man does not have even the feet, even if he wanted to wear the shoes. That is one thing we must always remember. Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamu alayhi says, cultivate the habit of looking down and not up. If you start stretching your neck looking at the Mercedes cars and double R's running about, sometimes you'll get a pain neck and no massage can cure it. But try to look down, and there are people who don't have even enough to go about to live. And you will realize how happy you can be. The second incident which Saadi has written is that one Arab gentleman entered a boat traveling by sea with his servant. The servant was coming into the boat for the first time. He had never seen the sea. He had never sat in a boat. And the moment he sat and he saw the waves and the rocking and rolling of the boat, he started shouting, Ya Allah, I'm dying, before even death came. Just as it rolled and rocked, he thought he was going to die. And when he saw the waves rising, he started shouting. And he shouted so much that his master and other passengers in the boat, all of them became so unhappy. But this man, they tried to appease him, they tried to explain him. It's all safe, don't worry, we shall reach our destination. But the man was not at all to be satisfied with all those appeasing. So there was an old man there, he told his master that if you want him to calm down, catch him by the throat and put him in the sea. That's all. There's no other way. So the master took him by the scruff and put him in the sea. Of course, not to drown. The fellow did not know even how to swim. But as he went into the sea and he saw himself in the water, he tried with his hands and limbs to come as nearer as he could to the boat so that he could be saved. But the man left him for a few minutes. When the fellow exactly came to a stage of drowning, he again caught him back and brought him into the boat. And the man, after half an hour, was laughing and was joining people in the laughter and was serving the people and forgot everything. Why? Because now his mind started comparing the insecurity of the waves with the security of the boat. We are like that slave. We have got to be put into some problems to realize how good we were. Because as the boat is moving, everyone feels that there is something missing. But when we are put into tumultuous time and turbulence, then we realize how better off we were. And this is the reason why these things must be understood first. Second thing which we must understand is that in Islamic philosophy, evil or bad does not exist independently at all. It's a matter of philosophy which must be understood. Nothing evil, nothing bad exists. The existence, according to Quran Majid and the teachings of our Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'in, is that creation is nothing but good. So you will ask me, but Mullah Sahib, what happens to all these people who are dying, who are starving, who are unhealthy, who are born with disabled limbs and all that? Simple. The answer from us is simple. We say that that which you call bad, that which you call evil, is not existent. It is the absence of good which is called bad. When you say somebody is ill, it means there is an absence of health. When you say somebody is poor, there is absence of wealth. When you say that somebody has gone insane, that means absence of wisdom or absence of sanity. Absence of good is evil. In other words, we say this, that good and evil is just like a man and his shadow. Man exists, shadow does not exist, yet it is seen. But what is a shadow? Shadow is a blockade which does not allow sunlight to travel. But that particular area which is blocked by something is dark. But that does not mean that it exists. It does not exist. It is relative. It is relative. If you understand this, you will understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرِ إِنَّكَ عَلَىٰ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. Into your hands, O Allah, there is nothing but good. If we slightly, patiently think over this, then I'm coming to the most crucial part of it, of course. But this is Islamic way of thinking, that nothing exists but good. Evil is absence of that good, and that absence is therefore relative. I give examples. I have given this one. There was one friend of mine somewhere in India whom I met. When I asked him what you are doing, he said, I'm digging the graves. He's a grave digger. He's a grave digger. And he asked for some assistance, for some help, and then he said, Mullah Sahib, आप हमारे वास्ते दुआ कीजिए, खुदा रोजी में बरकत दे. Now just explain me that what is that rozi barakat? If I prayed for him, does that mean he should go on digging graves? That means people should die. I mean, his risk is on digging the graves. And if I prayed for him, one day he might take me together. It's relative. There's nothing wrong in digging the grave. And there's nothing wrong in anyone praying for him. But the idea strikes immediately, and this is of course going to the extreme. Let us go to day-to-day friends whom we meet every day, our doctors. They say, Mullah Sahib, roji mare dua karjo. What does that mean? That means people should fall sick, so that doctors may get busy. So if you look at it all, everything in this world is relative. That which pleases you may displease the other, and that which displeases the other may please you. And therefore it cannot be said that this particular aspect of it is consistently bad. You cannot say that. Everything on this earth is in positive sense, and whatever is negative is actually sometimes in our mind, and sometimes it is the absence of good. If we understand this, then we come to the unhappiness that we have on earth. Whenever a man gets into any misfortune, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, first decide who has done it. Allah has done it or you have done it. You just cannot say anything that comes on earth is done by Allah and simply blame God for it and then say He is unjust. You cannot do that. Because if you are a good thinker and consistent thinker, you will have to sometimes acknowledge that whatever has befallen me is because of my own drawbacks and shortcomings. But man doesn't want to do that. So it is easy to consign to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He is not there to come and catch me by the throat. Everything is done by God. You'll find that most of the time things are by our own selves. And it is imagination that takes us to that this is done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. God says in Quran that if it is from me, that is from Allah, then it is for your own good. If it is from me, then it is for your own good. When I love my servant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and Rasulullah has corroborated this, if Allah loves His servant, He puts him into trials and tribulations, not that Allah wants to test me and find the result, but because Allah wants me to start on the path of perfection. Kamal. When Hazrat Musa and Khizr met, as Quran says, Janab Musa alayhi salam asked Khizr to teach him. He asked him to allow him to accompany him to learn from him. Quran says, هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا. And the immediate answer Hazrat Khizr gave was, Musa, you cannot come with me. إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. You will not be able to bear. You will not be able to put up with me. And when Musa said, no, I would like to, the answer he gave, well, how can you put up when you don't know, when you have no knowledge about it? So the argument is that we cannot put up with the difficulties we face because we have no knowledge about it. We don't know that there is a design behind everything. And in this earth, for every new development, there must be some commotion. Even a child is not born without giving pangs of labor to the mother. And you and I cannot enjoy food till we have experienced hunger. The discomfort of hunger gives you taste of food. The pangs of labor brings the child. Put a seed in the ground. It will break the coating of the seed also, and it also breaks the ground to rise and to become a tree. Every commotion precedes the birth of every new thing. If a villager were to come here, a villager who has never seen a city, and if he sees everywhere there is road construction, people with drills breaking it, he might think that London or Harrow is a place where they only destroy. Or demolition. For example, if anybody came to this Imambara earlier, say about 5-7 years ago, he would have seen nothing but rubble. And he would have think that London Jamaat is busy only destroying. But someone has to sit and tell him that this destruction is going to be followed by some construction which is the design. This is what is called divine pattern of working. Everywhere on earth there is demolition, but behind it there is a divine design. But we don't know. And immediately we start saying, against you. Behind every